They may never say it. Not in the movie script declaration, not in the daily reassurance, not in the effortless I love you that slips out between bites of dinner. With an avoidant, love often comes disguised, hidden in the corners of their behavior, slipped into the spaces between words, and if you're only listening for the traditional signals, you might miss it entirely, or worse, you might assume it isn't there. Because here sits the contradiction. No one prepares you for someone can love you and still be terrified of what that love demands. So they don't show it the way you want. They show it in ways that make sense to them. Ways that are safe. Ways that don't set off the alarms in their nervous system. Maybe it's the coffee they leave for you in the morning without saying a word. Maybe it's fixing the cabinet you've been struggling with for months. Maybe it's remembering the kind of pen you like, or taking the long route home so they can pick up your favorite snack. We measure love by how we give it. We expect words if we're verbal. We expect touch if we're tactile. We expect constant presence if that's how we feel secure. And when those markers aren't there, we assume the feeling isn't either. But avoidants often speak an entirely different emotional language. One that's less about vulnerability in words and more about control in actions. They'll do for you what feels safe for them to give, but they'll hesitate to step into the raw, unfiltered territory of verbal or emotional nakedness. And that gap between what they feel and what they can express is where so much confusion and heartbreak is born. Because when you love someone avoidant, you can start to believe the love isn't real, when in fact it's just hidden behind their armor. But that sups the question, isn't said it. If love is hidden, is it enough? Before you can answer that, you have to learn to see the signs for what they are, without romanticizing them, without excusing what's missing, but also without missing the truth that is there. Because once you can see how they show love without saying the words, you can decide from a place of clarity, not confusion, whether it's the kind of love you want to receive. The first sign is in their protection of your space. It might not look like the protective gestures you've seen in movies, no grand speeches, no dramatic rescues, but pay attention. When an avoidant loves you, they often give you breathing room, not because they're detached, but because they believe space is a form of care. See, in their wiring, closeness is dangerous. It feels like a risk, a place where they might lose control, be consumed, or disappoint someone. So when they truly care, they're hyper-aware of not wanting to overstep. It's not that they can't be closer. It's that they think holding back is a kindness. You might notice it in the way they respect your boundaries, sometimes almost to a fault. They'll give you alone time without you having to ask. They won't press you to talk when you're quiet. They'll back off the moment they sense you need to recharge. And while to you, love might look like leaning in, to them, love looks like leaning back so you can breathe. But here's where the pain creeps in. That same gesture that they think is loving can feel like distance to you. You might interpret it as disinterest, as them pulling away when in their mind they're actually honoring you. This is the hidden contradiction in avoiding overwhelming you. They may accidentally starve you. Have you ever had that moment when you wish they'd just stay? Stay in the room, stay in the conversation, stay in the emotion, but instead they retreat thinking they're doing the right thing. That's the avoidance paradox of love. And here's where your power begins, when you can see the difference between withholding and protecting. Withholding is about control. Protecting is about care. They may both feel like space, but they come from different places inside. If you can discern that difference, you can name it without blame. You can say, when you give me space, I appreciate it, but sometimes I also need you closer. You're not asking them to stop showing love their way. You're showing them what love feels like to you. And sometimes, when an avoidant truly cares, that steps enough for them to try a little differently next time. Avoidants may struggle with emotional vulnerability, but when they care about you, they often try to make your life easier in tangible, measurable ways. It's how they can express love without feeling too exposed. They'll fix the thing that's been broken without you asking. They'll handle that errand you've been dreading. They'll quietly solve a problem in the background. Not for credit, not for applause, but because it gives them a sense of contribution without requiring emotional risk. To them, love is often expressed through doing. And that's not because they don't feel, it's because action feels safer than words. Words can lead to deeper questions, to intimacy, to a place where they fear they'll be seen too fully. But a silent gesture that they can offer without triggering their own alarms. Think about the times you've been upset and they didn't say much, but they brought you your favorite meal, or when they noticed something stressing you out and they just handled it. Maybe they changed the oil in your car, or took on a chore you hate, or quietly researched solutions to something you mentioned once in passing. These moments are not random. They're love filtered through their comfort zone. But here's the trap. If you only measure love in verbal affirmation, you'll miss these signals. You'll think, if they really cared, they'd tell me. And while that might be true for a secure partner, an avoidant will often show it in the way they provide, fix, or solve. Does it replace emotional presence? No. But does it mean they don't care? Not necessarily. This is where discernment matters. Practical care can be deeply meaningful, or can become a substitute they hide behind to avoid deeper connection. The difference is in whether these acts come alongside any emotional openness, or whether they're the only form of giving you ever receive. When you see practical care as one of their love languages, you can acknowledge it without romanticizing it into something it's not. You can appreciate the gesture, but still invite them to meet you in the deeper space you need. And here's the beauty. Sometimes when you express gratitude for these small, practical ways they show up, it becomes easier for them to step into the more vulnerable ways you're longing for. If this is landing for you, subscribe. We're just getting started. One of the most subtle and most easily missed ways an avoidant shows love is through letting you in on their world, even in small doses. For someone who lives with high walls, letting you see behind them is not casual. It's calculated, it's risky, and it's rare. It might look like them telling you a personal story from their past, not the polished version they tell acquaintances, but the raw one they don't share often. It might be them showing you a hobby they've never shared before, playing you a song they wrote years ago, introducing you to a close friend or family member. In their mind, this is intimacy. This is vulnerability. And for them, it's huge. The challenge is that they often do this inconsistently. They might let you in one day, then pull back the next. Not because they've stopped caring, but because vulnerability is exhausting for them. They need to retreat to feel safe again. And that retreat can leave you wondering, did I imagine it? Did it even mean anything? It did. But here's the hard truth. Meaning alone isn't enough to sustain a relationship. Being let in occasionally doesn't replace the need for consistent emotional connection. So the shift is this. Instead of dismissing these moments as meaningless because they're rare, or clinging to them as proof you should hold on at any cost, you see them for exactly what they are, real signs of care. Yes, but also a snapshot of their current capacity. Because love, even when it seems real, can be limited, and your clarity about their limits is what will protect you from mistaking a peek through the door for an invitation to move in. Another hidden way avoidants show love is simply by staying. It might sound small, ordinary, but for someone whose instinct is to run the moment intimacy feels threatening, choosing to remain in proximity to you, even when it's uncomfortable for them, is an act of quiet commitment. You might not see fireworks in their expression. They may not gush over you or shower you with constant affirmation. But if you look closely, You'll notice the moments they could have left and didn't. The argument that got heated but didn't end in a shutdown. The emotional conversation they tolerated longer than usual. The trip you invited them on that they could have avoided, but they came anyway. For them, these aren't set casual choices. They set your battles against their own nervous system, the part of them wired to protect themselves by retreating. And each time they override that impulse, it sets their way of saying, "You such are worth pushing past my fear." Now, let's be honest. Staying isn't the same as showing up fully. Sometimes an avoidant will stay physically present while remaining emotionally absent. And that can hurt just as much, if not more, than them leaving. This is where you have to read the nuance. Is their staying accompanied by small steps toward openness? Or are they staying as a way to avoid guilt, while keeping the walls intact? If it's the former, those steps, however clumsy, are signs that they're stretching for you. If it's the latter, their presence may be less about love and more about comfort or convenience. And knowing the difference is everything. Because when an avoidant truly cares, their choice to stay is not passive. It costs them something internally, and they'll often pair it, however subtly, with a willingness to lean in just a little further than they did before. You might notice it in the way they sit next to you when you're upset instead of disappearing into another room, or how they linger after a difficult conversation, even if they're quiet, or how they agree to plans that stretch their comfort zone because they know it matters to you. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but for them, it's monumental. And when you can see this for what it is, you stop measuring only by the obvious signs of love and start recognizing the quiet internal battles they're fighting to keep you close. Send to this someone who's been stuck in this. Another way avoidants show love, one that's almost invisible unless you know what you're looking for, is in the trust they place in you to respect their autonomy. For someone wired to guard their independence fiercely, letting you in without feeling suffocated is an act of deep faith. They may not say, "I trust you," but you'll feel it in the way they allow you into their routines without micromanaging the terms. Maybe they give you a key to their place. Maybe they don't flinch when you move something in their kitchen or leave your things at their house. Maybe they let you take the driver's seat literally and figuratively without feeling the need to control every moment. Avoidants live with a constant undercurrent of self-protection. They're hyper-aware of anything that might threaten their sense of independence because dependence once felt dangerous to them. So when they stop guarding so tightly, that's not an accident. It's an unspoken acknowledgement that you are safe to them. Here's what makes this tricky. To you, these might seem like normal relationship milestones, but for an avoidant, they're significant steps. Giving you access, giving you leeway, letting you into the parts of their life they've kept entirely self-managed. These are acts of trust. And trust, for them, is as intimate as "I love you." So the power here is in recognition without overreach. Seeing their trust for what it is, appreciating it, but not demanding it move faster than they can sustain. Because when an avoidant realizes they can maintain their autonomy and have you in their life, something starts to shift inside them. The walls don't crash down overnight, but they soften. And in that softening, more love can move through. Perhaps the rarest and most telling way an avoidant shows love is when they allow themselves to be influenced by you. Avoidants are fiercely self-reliant. They've built entire identities around not needing anyone, around making their own decisions, around keeping their emotional world firmly under their control. So when they begin to let your thoughts, preferences, and perspectives shape their choices, even subtly, it's a profound sign of care. It might be in the music they start listening to because you love it. The way they order their coffee differently after trying your favorite, the way they remember your advice and act on it, even if they never admit that's why they did it. Sometimes it's bigger, taking your suggestion to see a doctor about something they've been ignoring, following your lead on how to handle a conflict, changing a habit that was hurting the relationship. These may not seem like grand gestures, but for someone who guards their independence like armor, it's monumental. Here's the nuance. They may not credit you out loud. An avoidant might say, I decided to, instead of, you made me think about. That's not because they don't value you. It's because openly acknowledging influence can feel like vulnerability, like an admission that they're relying on someone. And reliance for them is risky. But make no mistake, if their behavior shifts in ways that align with your presence, your words, your influence, that's love in motion. That's them letting you matter. And here sups the deeper truth. When they begin to allow your influence, it sups not just about the change itself. It sups about the unspoken statement underneath. You start close enough to me that your voice shapes mine. For someone who has spent a lifetime making sure no one gets that close, that's not casual, that's love, in their language. So maybe they've never said the words. Maybe you've been waiting for that clear verbal I love you that never comes. And maybe that absence has made you question everything. Your worth, the relationship, the truth of what you felt. But now you see it differently. You see the way they protect your space, not as indifference, but as their way of honoring you. You see the practical care, the errands, the repairs, the quiet problem solving as love filtered through their comfort zone. You see that staying, when leaving would be easier for them, is a choice they make because you matter. You see how trusting you with their autonomy is their way of saying, you stir safe for me. And you see how letting you influence them, even in small, unspoken ways, is proof you've reached past their walls. None of these replace the need for real emotional connection. None of them mean you should settle for crumbs or keep waiting for a love that never fully arrives, but they do mean something. And when you can read the language they're speaking, even if it's not yours, you hold the power to decide from clarity, not confusion. Because the truth is, love can be real and still not be enough for you. And knowing how to see it doesn't mean you have to stay for it. It means you can honor it, name it, appreciate it, and still choose the kind of love that meets you where you are without you having to decode it. Now that you can see their love for what it is, quiet, sideways, often disguised, is it the love you want to build your life on? Because you stir not here to beg for words. You're here to live in the kind of love where you never have to wonder,